Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. I'm Olakunle Kasumu. Thanks for joining us and I hope you will have a good time watching. Today we'll be showing you an interview, a reading, and a response to the age-long question about whether or not Africans read. Let's get started with our guest author, who is reputed to be one of the most successful American thriller writers out there. Mark Cameron had many years of experience in law enforcement before fully focusing on writing. He has since written critically acclaimed thriller novels. He is well known for writing parts of the popular Jack Ryan series and the award-winning Jericho Queen series. We met with Mark Cameron for a brief chat about his writing and things related. Enjoy the interview. Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
You were in law enforcement for about 30 years, and then from law enforcement, you went to full-time writing. How did you make the transition?
Well, I always wanted to be a writer. I knew I wanted to be a writer from the time I was a small boy, and I wrote stories, and my family would take long trips, and I would write, fill up notebooks full of stories, but I never could get them published for years. And so as a young police officer, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I knew when I got married, and I told my wife I wanted to be a writer. And that first year of our marriage, she gave me a Smith Corona electric typewriter and a bulletproof vest, because they didn't buy us those back in the day. So she's really supported me along the way. But I just kept, with an eye of being a writer when I would arrest someone. And one thing that people don't realize is that most of the people we arrest are not evil people. They're people that have made a mistake. And so I would talk to them and chat with them and get to know them and their backstory, and many of them have ended up in books. And I've arrested some evil, bad people too, very bad people. And I talk to them as well. And you kind of lose your fear of people when you deal with hunting bad guys all the time. So that's helped my plotting of the books a lot.
About 30 years in law enforcement, which obviously is a profession that gives you an interface with crime and violence and all those things. Did that influence you to go into the crime fiction genre?
I think particularly the action. I like books. I'm the type of person that likes action, and so that's why I got into that line of work. Both my sons were in law enforcement. My oldest is now in medical school. My youngest is still a police officer. We enjoy that sort of thing. And so I think just the type of person I am, I enjoy activities and action, and so it dictated the kind of books I would write. But the people I worked with, the men and women that I worked alongside, the people that I've arrested, those have all ended up in my books. The stories have ended up, changed to make them probably much more exciting than they were in real life, but have ended up in my stories one way or another.
Obviously in law enforcement you tend to meet people of different characters. I'm guessing that picking your characters or describing or creating your characters in your books will be quite easy, considering the fact that for over 30 years you met people of all sorts.
The characters, you're absolutely right. The plots are sometimes difficult to figure out and come up with and make them believable, but I have no end of just this treasure trove of characters of really just fascinating, heroic, good people that I've been able to work with. My own children among them. Two of them really like riding motorcycles. Two of them are martial artists. And these people that I've worked with, the Marshal Service, the military, the local police, the other agencies, the Secret Service, FBI, just really fantastic people that want to do the right thing. And then the characters on the bad guy side, the people that are not necessarily bad, they just made bad mistakes, but also the really bad people. I draw from those as well.
How do you see the world? How do you see people? I'm just thinking, you've got all these years as a law enforcement agent. You are trained to be observant and to watch and to study character. And then from there, you move to becoming a writer, which is also a profession that requires you are super observant, and picking up things. So, would it be right to say when you walk a street, you are not exactly the normal guy who is just careless about what's happening all around him?
Right. No, that's a really good question and a good observation, that we had to be extra observant. They say that there's this, I don't remember who said it, but there's a saying that writers remember everything they hear and see and then forget where they heard and saw it, so they take the credit, right? So you have to be observant of people and characters and kind of get your head out of your phone. But as a police officer, a law enforcement officer, you have to do that to be safe. And I think while I was still an active duty law enforcement officer, I was probably a little more judgmental, like, that guy looks dangerous, I'm not gonna, where my friends now might be a little bit in the gray areas of the law because I need to talk to those people and I don't really care if they're breaking that particular whatever ordinance of the city. I think I'm a little more open. You asked a very interesting question where you said, how do I view the world? I try to view the world realistically, which means that I know that there is bad out there. I'm not gonna turn a blind eye to it, but I also believe that there are just magnificent people in all cultures and all across the world, and I think often Americans are particularly guilty of it. I think we get sort of myopic in that the center of the world is us. And I tell this to everybody, not just because you're from Africa, but I get to travel enough that I think that's really the travel, Mark Twain said it and I'm paraphrasing him, but travel is the best thing to conquer prejudice in the world, because you get to meet so many different people and realize, oh, they're just trying to feed their families like I am. And I think most people just want that.
You picked up the Jack Ryan character. Tom Clancy obviously was a legend and created the Jack Ryan character, and he passed on. And you've been one of those who have taken up the responsibility of continuing the Jack Ryan series. Who is Jack Ryan to you? What does it mean to you?
No, that's a very good question. I grew up, well, not grew up, but when I was a young policeman, brand new in the police academy, Hunt for Red October came out. And so I was 21 and barely old enough to buy my own bullets, kind of a thing. I was a very young police officer. So I kind of grew up in my law enforcement career reading every new Clancy book as it came out. And so I feel like I know those characters. So it's an honor, but it's also terrifying when Mark Graney, who took up the pen while Tom Clancy was still alive, and then Mark wrote 7, I think, and Mark recommended me for the job when he decided to focus more on his Gray Man series, which is a wonderful series. But it was terrifying. It was really scary because I love those characters so much. And Jack Ryan is he's the kind of person that I really try to be like and want my kids to be like. You do the right thing without thinking about the consequences because it's the right thing. And there are people in the world really like that. And I think most of us fall short, and we try, but he's a very fun character to write about. The next book that comes out, Code of Honor, it comes out the end of this month. I work quite a bit with his relationship with his wife, Kathy Ryan, and her intelligence. I mean, she's a doctor, an ophthalmologist, and a very smart lady. You wouldn't have not a smart lady married to somebody like Jack Ryan, or he wouldn't marry someone that was not also intelligent. So I like his family dynamic. The other characters, John Clark and Domingo Chavez, I feel like I've known those through the years, so they've been very fun to write.
Some writers, after they have hit particular levels of success, become a little bit relaxed and just want to take things easy. Some others are constantly hungry. They're just hungry for as many years as possible. For you, where are you right now?
That's another good question. I'm 57 years old, so I have grandchildren that wear me out, and I'm about where I want to be. I feel so fortunate to have my own. I have 2 series of my own, and then the Tom Clancy series. I'm writing the kind of books that I want to write. I have fun writing them. The Tom Clancy series has been such a blessing because it opens doors. Our other series were doing well, but the Tom Clancy series opens doors in research with the military and other countries, and because he's so well known, that it puts me in a good spot that way. So it's still extremely fun for me. And I'm the kind of person that if I'm not enjoying my life, I'll find something else to do, because I consider being a deputy U.S. Marshal, which I did for 22 years after I was a policeman, the best job in the world. I just enjoyed going to work every day. Being a novelist, being to write these books and think up these stories is the second best job in the world, and I love doing it. I'm happy to be doing it, right where I want to be.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Do Africans read? Of course, so many of us read, but I'm sure you will get what the question is all about. Well, we asked a gentleman who has been at the heart of administering library services in Lagos State for many years, and this is how he responded.
To me, to say that the black people do not read is totally a misconception among the Europeans. The black people, are very, very interested in reading. Although, when you look at 2 major factors, in terms of, one is economic factor, the other one is provision of basic facilities or amenities for a conducive reading or learning to take place. Now, let us take economic factor first. Like in the developed countries, they have a more relaxed society where people, don't have much problem. The governments of their various countries are taking care of their problems. Like, look at the unemployment problem in Africa. It's more severe. Is it somebody who has graduated for 4, 5, 6 years and is still looking for a job that you think will continue to read like before? Is it somebody who is hungry? So he's being confronted with hunger, he cannot read. But in the developed society, right, they channel their energy towards reading because the environment is more conducive. So the promotion of reading culture is given more prominence over there because of the conducive environment. So at the same time, when you look at some outstanding Africans, outstanding scholars, somebody like Professor Wole Soyinka, Professor Chinua Achebe, and a lot of emeritus professors we have in Nigeria. So despite the challenges, right, they study in a very hard environment, yet they excel. So they won the Laurel Prize. So when you look at all this, the Africans are reading, even though they are reading in a more challenging environment that is not totally 100% conducive for reading, learning, or career research, but they are still trying their best. Even when they go outside, when they travel outside the country, they still excel and even perform above those people that actually studied abroad. So the Africans are reading. So my submission on that is that it is a misconception among the Europeans that the Africans are not reading. I don't agree with that.
Some episodes ago, we showed you an interview we had with the former First Lady of Oyo State, Mrs. Florence Ajimobi. It was about her memoir titled My Life Like a Rainbow, in which she provided interesting glimpses into her experience as a First Lady. In My Life as a Rainbow, Florence Ajimobi is open and holds little back in explaining how she initially did not support her husband's political ambition, but gradually came around to it. On the day we interviewed her, she did a reading, and the part she read shed a lot of light on how she reacted to her inevitable journey into the world of Nigerian politics. Enjoy this reading.
My name is Dr. Florence Ajimobi, wife of the former governor of Oyo State Senator Abiola Adeyemi Ajimobi. I'm also the CEO, founder of Access to Basic Medical Care Foundation, a non-governmental, non-profit making NGO in Ibadan. I'm also the author of this book, My Life Like a Rainbow, a book that I launched when I turned 60 in April 2019. I'd like to read chapter 7 of this book, Life as the Wife of a Politician. And the reason why I picked this chapter is because when my husband first decided to go into politics in 2002, I didn't support him. But at the end of the day, I had to follow what my Bible said. Be submissive to your husband. So I changed my mind and I gave him all the support he needed. So life as the wife of a politician. As I said earlier, my husband enjoyed a robust career growth for several years in National Oil. He was appointed the managing director in the year 2000. In 2002, when he was retiring, he had superintended the successful privatization of the company as the government divested its interest in National Oil. Successfully, the company transmuted to Consolidated Oil, Corn Oil, a company owned by Dr. Mike Adenuga. The company was well on the path of profitability before he took the decision to quit. The Abiola I married has always been a workaholic. He worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 52 weeks in a year. He hardly went on holidays until the children began to talk about it. Whenever my husband went on a trip, it had to do with an official assignment. He was 54 years old when he left Corn Oil, and as an extremely restless workaholic, he was too young to remain idle. My husband had some months of leave arrears, so he took some time to relax and spend time with his daughters in Los Angeles, United States of America, like I stated in the last chapter. It was on his return that he dropped the bombshell. I am certain that while he was on leave, he must have consulted people back home and made his decision. He decided to go into politics, and I was just dazed because the idea and the motivation had come from absolutely nowhere. When he came back from America and informed me of his decision to go into politics, I realized that this meant that we had to relocate to Ibadan as soon as possible because the 2003 elections were less than a year away. We needed to kickstart his campaign immediately. I was faced by all this. My initial reaction was that it was a joke. I could not believe it and wondered where everything was coming from. I had many unanswered questions, but like a typical Ibadan man, he felt he did not owe me any prolonged explanation or justification for his actions. He had made his decision, and all that was required of me as a good wife was to support him. I was scared for him. The uncharted waters frightened me, and more than ever, I was afraid to leave my comfort zone. Refusing to accept his stance, I continuously questioned his decision to go into politics. He gave me the same answer that he needed to serve his people and make life easier for the masses. Several times, I cried on my knees, reminding him of all our charity and philanthropic interventions in the health and education sector. I asked him if they were not enough. I wearied him with my tears. At some point, he stopped responding to me. Then I switched to my silent mode. I needed to fight this to a standstill. For about 2 months, we were not on talking terms. I did my best to fight him, thinking he would change his mind. Instead, I pushed him to the wall because in October 2002, he moved to Ibadan and did not come home throughout that month and November. Initially, I stuck to my guns, unyielding, until the children began to put pressure on me. As a softie, I caved in and my resolve fell apart. By December, when the school term closed, I went to Ibadan with the children to see him. The countdown to the elections had started earnestly, and he was really caught up in the process. We saw him and decided to spend Christmas with him. However, I saw a really different man in Ibadan. He started going out and came back late, something I hated passionately. Then I began to complain again. One day he called me and said, "You know, I did not ask you to come to Ibadan. You came out of your own volition. Please, don't stress me." My head sparked. I was upset. This is the limit, I thought. I could not believe he said such to me. I was sorely hurt. So I decided to go back to my business in Lagos. But my children wanted to stay with Daddy. They persuaded me to allow them spend Christmas with him. So I had to stay as well, as I could not leave them alone. Left with no choice, I succumbed to their will. But the look on my children's faces melted my heart. Since all I wanted for them was happiness, I swallowed my pride despite the hurt I felt. As a loved child, those words and their intent were like daggers. More so, not having my way and being talked down were too much to bear. However, for the sake of my children, I stayed back in Ibadan for Christmas. One of my purposes on earth, which I learned early enough in my marriage journey, is that I'll always find fulfillment whenever I support my husband and inspire him to achieve landmarks. It makes me happy to see Abiola happy and fulfilled. I do not dwell on disappointments for long and do not seek what is not available. Rather, I take whatever is available and make it work. With all these in mind, I was able to grudgingly support my husband. We began what has now become a revolutionary journey into politics of Oyo State. With my full approval and support, my husband contested for the Oyo South senatorial seat under the platform of the Alliance for Democracy AD. To the glory of God, he won that election as the only senator under that party. For his inauguration and effective functionality, we needed to move over to Abuja. Good enough, at this time, only my last child was at home with me. The others had proceeded abroad for further studies. The first two, Bisola and Abimbola, were already in the United States of America, while the third, Jibola, was already in England for her tertiary education. My fourth child was also away, taking his A-levels at Cambridge. I only had to wait until the school holidays to take my daughter there and begin scouting for a school in Abuja. We made the final move to Abuja in 2003. My last child, Adujola, indeed got the short end of the stick as we moved her around quite a lot. In fact, she attended 4 primary schools within 6 years in 3 cities.
I hope you have had a good time with us today. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. I'm Olakunle Kasumo. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.